really nice to see all these good examples popping up out of the cycles. Today I want to give it a little another touch, so you have a complete different idea on what I want to present today. In the end, it has also to do with cycles. When you know, I don't like cycles just on pure mathematical work. I think these cycles have to do with our emotions, with our mood and all this stuff, so it's just a way to detect them. And this is another method which I've worked on during the last years, which looks really promising, and I think I've come to a point where it looks like we can use it in trading, and I think this is the point where I'm able to present it. And there's also a lot of ideas how to go ahead of this, but in the end I will show you a method which you hopefully can really use in trading tomorrow, and this is important for me. I will talk how to identify turning points in the stock market based on how I call it major geomagnetic reversal dates. This is something new. I think this should be very important. With the presentation I want to take you a little bit with me during research period, that you get some ideas how I felt, how I discovered this. I think that makes it a little bit personal, that you don't only have the tools in the end of the day, that you can recap how all my thinking was during this time. And it was one of these nights when sitting in front of the computer and doing research and things, and the children are bed and sleeping, the wife is crying, come to bed. No, I can't, I have to do something, here's something. And I was not able to get to bed, but you know these evenings when someone is going on in your head. And then my wife come in and asked me, what are you doing here? And then I showed her a little video. I want to show it also to you. Here, come, you have to look here at this. So just watch it. She watched it with me. Yes, that's all. And I was so enthusiastic this evening, and I asked the question, how Neil did, what do you see? What did you see here? And she looked at me and said, is this a new science fiction movie? So it depends on what you want to see, or what you like to see, or what you're able to see. It's the same question. Do you want to make a film? Are you coding some animations here? I say, no, okay, you go to bed, I will stay and work at it. This was one of these nights because I think you all know there are important reasons why we are allowed to live on this planet, and one reason is the sun and the energy of the sun. And another important reason is that we have this magnetic field around the Earth. And without the magnetic field and the sun, we would not have been able to live here on this planet. And the reason why we have the magnetic field is because the Earth spins with a special speed, and this speed allows this magnetic field around the Earth. And other planets don't spin so fast and don't have this magnetic field, and that's the reason why there's not life on these planets, or this is one of these reasons. So these two very important forces, one's the sun, who gives all this energy here for us on the Earth, and the geomagnetic field, who saves us for the bad influences, perhaps what we can call from the sun. So, and I think the effects that come from these major forces are measured in the science, or it's called space weather, out there. So we have a lot of information about what's going on with the sun, what's coming down to Earth, what's happening out there, how do we measure it. So there's a lot of science going along these new stuff. So we have a lot of data about it, and that makes it interesting for research, that we have all this data where we can do our research on. And the main idea was this has to influence us somehow. The energy that comes from the sun, you have seen, it goes down to the Earth, it influences the magnetic field, comes back to the Earth with charged particles, which we see then as the aurora in the sky in some countries here. So we don't only see it, there has to be something more which will influence us. And I was on my way to find some ideas, how can we get some impacts on living on Earth. This is just the picture of what you have seen in the video. We have the solar storm with 3 effects: solar flares, proton events, and coronal mass ejections. The mass ejections are the most powerful, which come with a lot of load of charged particles, which will come down to Earth. And what you see here is the magnetic field of our Earth, and this is a solar wind, and the field is stretched in the direction of the wind. So, and the most interesting point comes when the ejections from the sun, like the solar storm, are directed in the way towards Earth. There will happen a lot of ejections which will not come down to Earth and not influence here, but the most important ones will come down when all these charged particles come down to Earth. Just to see some beautiful pictures, or just to start with some beautiful pictures which will have an image about it. And when these particles come down to Earth, even the satellites will be shut down when the energy is too much. And not only satellites, we have completely power breakdowns when these energies are too high. We had this in the past, not so often, but it happened, and it can happen again. So there's a powerful force when these charged particles come down to Earth, and we can measure it, and we can see it. So this is a live picture from January this year from Finland, where you can see it in the sky. All these charged particles make this nice light in the sky here. So you can feel and see that there has to be something. And this is the interesting part. Also, when the forces of the moon and the tidal forces you can see on the sea. So you can see that there are forces, there's happening something, and it's the same here with the sun. With the sun, there's happening something, there comes energy down to Earth. So what was missing was the link, okay, how does it affect our living on Earth on a personal way, and what has it to do with the stock market? These are the open questions where my head was spinning this night. Just to give you a short theoretical way, we as humans here on Earth are adapted to this field since we are on the planet here. So from the sun comes down all this solar energy of sunspot cycles, charged particles. They come down to the Earth, and we have a magnetosphere which shields the way the particles come down, and we have an ionosphere where all these particles will influence the near Earth field. And without going into detail, we as the human are adapted to this field. So when the field is in its normal state, we feel comfortable because we are living in this field since we are here on this planet. So, but when something happens to this field, we will have an influence to our heart or to our brain, because even our brain and heart has some magnetic influences and his own field. So there has to be an influence, because this ionosphere and magnetosphere will be influenced from the sun. And we are living in this field, and this field changes, and so something in us has to change. So this is the basic idea, that there's a connection between the energy that comes down from the sun to the Earth, influences a near Earth field. We are living in this field. We don't see it, we don't feel it, but there are things going on when these fields are changed or are influenced from these effects here. So this is the basic connection. Now we have to find a way to get all this down to the stock market. But before we come to the stock market, the influence on humans from the medical point of view is documented in a real interesting way. So when we start with the sentence, geomagnetic storms appear to affect human behavior, judgments, and decision about risk, research has documented links to depression, anxiety, sleep disturbances, altered moods, abstract judgments, or psychiatric admissions. So there's a lot of research out there from the medical perspective that when these coronal mass erections, or a lot of disturbances come down to Earth, that we as a human body are influenced. And these are the medical studies here, and the numbers are really interesting. We have an increase about 36% in male hospital admissions diagnosed with a depressed phase, correlated with geomagnetic storms compared to quiet period. So this is not just 5% or 2%, these are 30%. Pilots experienced high level of anxiety and decreased functionality in the nervous system, and a sharp decline of flying skills during geomagnetic storms. I think this is perhaps one reason why the US Air Force gives us a free forecast. I don't know exactly, but I think they are very interested in these geomagnetic forces, because pilots will be influenced from these forces. So they have to know on which days will these forces be high or low. And the good story of this is that we get this information for free, so we can use it. There's a doubled daily number of hospitalizations of patients with normal disorders during geomagnetic storms. 70% of the accidents caused by human factors in atomic station of the former USSR correspond to days of geomagnetic storms. So we see that the human error, the human problems that come up during these geomagnetic storms will be increased during these times. So we have 70% of increased daily death rates due to heart attacks during these geomagnetic days. And we have an increase of 130% of daily death rates due to strokes during these periods. So this is research you will find out there. This is an interesting article about this solar storm threat analysis, where this is all explained in more detail, so you can read about it if you like. But in the end, there's a lot of other medical studies out there who prove that there's a huge correlation between our human behavior and the period when geomagnetic storms appear out there. So I think this is another proof that we have a big influence on our mood and behavior, judgments, decision making when we have these times of geomagnetic storms out there. So now we have to find a link to the stock market. The basic idea is very simple. We can measure the geomagnetic disturbance level out there. I will show you the numbers later. And then the question is, what influence do we have on human mood? When we have a quiet period, so the field is at its normal level, we have the field where we are living in, since we are on this planet here, we feel comfortable. We are happy because there's no influence on us. When this disturbance rises and we have a storm outside there, so that the field changes its normal state, then we feel uncomfortable. We make the false decisions. We make errors in operating airplanes and other stuff, so this is documented. So we feel bad during these times. And the basic idea is, when we're happy, we buy stocks, and when we are depressive, maniac, make not the right decisions, we sell stocks. Okay, when we know this, we should do the opposite. This is the interesting part then of the story, because we don't want to sell. We are interested in the extremes in the end. So okay, this is my basic idea. We have to find a connection, and I'm not the first one on this. There's, of course, studies out there. Not sure, perhaps you know about it. There was an article in 2003 playing the field, geomagnetic storms and the stock market, done by the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, who exactly was researching this connection. And they found a strong empirical support in favor of geomagnetic storm effect in stock returns. Usually high level of geomagnetic activity have a negative, statistically and economically significant effect on the following week's stock returns for all US stock market indices. Finally, this paper provides evidence of substantially higher returns around the world during periods of quiet geomagnetic activity. That's when we feel happy, we buy stocks. So there is a first proof that there is a link to the stock market. When you know about this, they measured absolute values, so after 2005, this method has not worked until today. There's a reason for that, but this was a good beginning to start with here. what data do we have to measure the geomagnetic activity? So there are a lot of stations on the world who measure the geomagnetic field out there. So there's not one data source, there are a lot of stations out there. So and the indices were designed to describe the variations of the field. So we have a lot of stations here on Earth who measure every minute the geomagnetic field and the variation of this field. So and the main or the most known index are the KP and the AP indices. The KP is the intraday index. It's measured or it's updated every 3 hours, and it's based on 13 stations or observatories who give the actual measurements. So, and the AP index is a daily index based on these converted KP values over a full day period here. So the KP is updated every 3 hours, and it's measured at every station, and the AP is the average daily index based on these KP indices. So, and this data is provided for free for us. I will show you the sources where we can get this data from, and this data is forecasted for free for us. This is the other interesting point, that we have a forecast of these values here, which we can use for our work. And we have it. We have a backlog to 1930, so we have a lot of data where we can do research with. This was the interesting part. Okay, this is the basic idea in mind. What I did the first during one of these nights, I will just move a little bit forward, was just plot it on a chart, either way, huh? Load up the data, plot it on a chart, and hope, okay, this must work. And I saw this, and I say, oh, will it be a long road to get any good information out of this? What is this? Yeah, and that's the reason why I was not able to go to bed early this night. No, okay, but you start with this idea. So get this data loaded on the chart, and we are not able to get useful information out of this. This is the raw data. Of course, this is the easy way to pull on a chart. Okay, then I went back. I need a larger picture. I need the whole story. I began with a longer period to go back in time. So I started to use the ray data back to 1932. So this is only monthly data from the AP index for the whole period of 80, 90 years. So I had to start somewhere with the overall picture, and this is the ray data here compressed on a monthly basis to get some general picture out of it before we can scale down to daily or intraday or whatsoever. I wanted to have the overall picture here. And this is good when you're doing this research. We have 80 years of data for this AP index here. So this also looks very interesting. Okay, where does this data come from? This is important if you do this in the future, because we did not get it out. You cannot calculate this data. Let me say it this way. There's no chance to mathematically calculate how the geomagnetic field will be tomorrow. There are forecasting models, but this is not a model to calculate how the value will be. It has it's a measurement. Yeah? We need all the stations on the world to measure this data, and therefore there's no algorithm to calculate it, or there's no spectacular hidden function which can calculate this geomagnetic AP index. We have to measure it. And therefore we have such institutions as a Space Weather Prediction Center, which gives us a lot of data based on this. And there you will find the information here, for example, where you can see we have the 45-day AP forecast, so you can just click on the link and get the latest forecast. You get the actual values of activity in different types of data sources here, so we can access this data, the history and the actual values and the forecast values on the net. You have the internet address in your papers. There's a second source here in Germany, uses the same station, so the data is the same, just another second source to get this information here. They measure the indices, and you can download all this data. When you click on these links here, quick look, HTML, so but you can do it on your own. You will find this type of tables where you get the KP3 hourly values for every day. This is the February, these are the days, and these are the values, and in the end of the day you will get the AP daily score here. So you just click on the net, you get the actual values, and this is updated in real time, so you don't have to wait for another month to come. This is updated in real time. This is just an example when we have this high geomagnetic activity with a high level here. This is what happens in the sky. So this is the same day, February 4th, as measured here as a value. Then they are popping up these nice pictures here in the sky, and you see the effect of the values in the sky. And this happens more and more often in the future and during the next months. So this is the data source we have to use. And these are the forecasts which are also available, 3-day, 27-day, and 45-day forecasts here. So you will find this on the net. Just to give you an idea, when we click on this forecast, this was done on December 28th as I prepared the presentation, 2010. You see we have the forecast until January 24th. So at every day you get this forecast for the next 20 to 40 days on the net. So and this makes it interesting. We have a forecast of this index. We have very high engineering and forecasting models in the background from the US Air Force and the NATO going on, which gives us this data here. Okay, this is what we're using if we use monthly or daily data. When we want to try to decode this information here, the next thing is we have to find a way, what are we doing with these values here? For example, the study of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta was published in the year of 2003 here, identified, or the study was based on the idea that every day we have a value over 15 or 16, you should not buy stocks for the next 6 days or so. This was the period they have researched. The interesting thing is this never happened after 2005 again. Yeah, a value above 15 did never happen after 2000. They published their study in 2003 based on this absolute data, and they stated in the research that when we have AP values above 16, we should not buy stocks for the period of the next 6 days. And there's a correlation in the history, but the problem is we cannot use this model because for the last 5 to 6 years we had no day with a value above. So I will come to this later. I just want you to give an idea where my brain was working on, because absolute values are not the key in this case here. I think they used an absolute value here, 15, 16 or whatsoever you want. And the problem with this information, I will explain later on, is that we don't have to concentrate on absolute values here. Okay. So if we do not use absolute values, how do we read the data instead? What does an AP index of 20 mean? Is it big or not big? Or an AP index above 15 mean? I will use another example to think about this. What is hot and what is cold? Is 20 degrees Celsius warm or hot? Warm? Okay, it's relative. So the problem is, for me personally, or when you say, okay, when you have the winter period and you get to Las Vegas and it's 20 degrees, it's very hot. Yeah? When the summer period ends and we're coming back from 30 degrees to 20 degrees, it's cold outside. So it's the feeling, what you have, what is hot or what is cold, is based on your relative past, what you have experienced in the near past. And if this changes, then you feel it's hot or cold. So it's not the absolute value. For one guy, 20 degrees is hot, for the other people not. So it depends on your personal near history. Where do you come from? Is 10 degrees Celsius cold? When I come from July into the winter period, of course it's cold. But when the winter ends and we have 10 degrees outside, I will go with the t-shirt outside. I will not do this when the summer ends. So it's a different perspective when is 10 degrees cold and when it is warm. So this is exactly what is happening with our mood. Our mood is not absolute. We are not happy in an absolute way or depressive in an absolute way. It depends on your relative past experiences. And you're more happy or more depressive like this way. But there's not an absolute measurement on this from your personal mood. And to transfer this idea that we don't take an absolute value and tell it's high or low, we use the near past information we have to see if it's higher or lower. So in the end, sometimes 25 degrees or 20 degrees feel cold and sometimes it feels hot. It makes no sense to build decision systems around absolute values. So our human feeling or mood is based on the near past, surrounding and measured to the near past extremes, not absolute extremes. So the relative near past extreme for what we have experienced, what we have saved in our brain, what we have the nearest feeling to. And this is not only with temperature, this is the same, or the idea is it should be the same with space weather conditions. So the human response is relative to the near past, not the absolute value of a geomagnetic force. And then I tried to transfer this idea to all this data that I wanted to say, okay, I don't need an absolute value because this did not work during the last 6 years. It's more relative because it's about feeling, it's about mood, and that's not an absolute level, and it will be different for everyone here. So the idea here is that we have the measurement of the AP index over the time, and we use when the AP index rises, so it gets higher, 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 that means we have high geomagnetic activity, so we will have the most negative mood, and it should relate to a market low because people get more and more depressive relative to the near past, and they start to sell because of their adverse risk adjustments. They're not able to make normal decisions. They are depressive. They don't feel good. So this is what the medical research shows. So this, perhaps, this was the idea, should correlate with people selling stocks. So and when it turns, people will start to feel better. So and when the mood turns, this gets interesting because they stop from selling and more move back or move forward and start to buy because they feel happier, they feel comfortable with the future outlook, it's promising, they feel happy, so they are able to make decisions in a normal way again. So and then the crowd gets more and more starting to buy stocks. So what we are interested in is these turning points, not absolute values here. So these levels are totally different from the absolute perspective, but from the relative perspective, this is exactly when we have the most negative point regarding the near past. So here they have been happy, or it was the most positive impact here, and here when we turn here, then it starts to get better. It starts to get better correlated to the near past, not the absolute past. Perhaps we had higher levels here. We don't have to wait until it comes to such a high level, but from the relative perspective, we start to feel better, yeah, because the influences are not so high. And so we should look at the extremes. So here we have the extreme low geomagnetic activity, so this should correlate to the most positive mood, buying stocks. We feel only more worse from here, so it only can get worse from here on. So we are interested in selling at these points. So exactly the opposite of what the feeling should be. And if we have a forecast, what will happen, so we know these turning points in advance, this makes it interesting. We don't have to look till everything has happened and can only see it from a research perspective. We have this data forecasted into the future. So we have a forecast here, so it makes it interesting using on the stock market. Okay, now back to the data. This is the data chart when you load up the raw data. The raw data is not readable in this way, so we need a mechanism to decode this raw data source. And This is the decoded version here. It's the same data, but now it gets more visually, or you're now able to see something here. What I've done, I will explain that this also a little bit later, is about what this showed us. We are interested in the trend of the geomagnetic activity. We are interested if it rises or will go down. So what we have to do with this data, what I will call it, we have to decycle it. Normally, when you use all the cycle stuff, you detrend data and then find the cycles. This is exactly the other way around. So I want all this cyclic behavior out. I want to see the main trend. So this was interesting for me because I had all the tools ready to do the cyclic work. I just had to apply it a little bit the other way around. So not detrend and find cycles, decycle and find trends. So from the coding or mathematical perspective, I had already just had to use it in a slightly different way, the other way around, because here I'm interested in the trend and not the cyclic behavior of this data. And this is what is applied to this data. This is a slightly decycled price behavior here. Without going too much into the details here on the mathematics, you get all these tools. So and now it gets a little bit more readable. So now we have to find, this is also a little bit jumping around here, so we have to sort out all these short jumps here and find to use the major trends out of this. This is just manually done. So these linear trends, so the last step is to find these linear trends. So I'm not a scientist and working, perhaps there are mathematical methods to find only the linear ways here, but I think this can be done easily in looking at the charts and drawing lines between the major top and lows. It's nothing other that I've done here, find a top, low, high, low, high, low, high, low. So nothing really special here with selecting this point. This is a linear trend information, and I've given the numbers, the low, I've counted as 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, and the highs I've given with A, B, C, and so on. So now I think if we are on this way, the next step is really easy. What happens if I plot these time information? The time information is given you by a script. Even these dates are given by a script, so I had an helping algorithm to sort out these days and plot it just on an Excel chart here in this way. Yes, let's have a look at the Dow Jones Index and just pull over these time information we had from the geomagnetic trend information. This is a logarithmic chart of the Dow Jones Index here for the same period in time, and put on this information here. This is the same points in time as derived from the other chart here. So just pulled over to these charts here. Okay, to make it a little bit more readable, just get out the noise and just connect the dots here in this case. And I think after I saw this, I was not able to sleep the whole night. So this is really interesting when you do the research, because first you're not sure what really comes out. Perhaps could have been that it was a wasted night, as so much have been before. But okay, it gets more and more interesting here. This is a longer picture. Of course, it's not for day trading or intraday trading, but okay, there is a correlation. There is something, even if one or two are not correct, the main information here, there's a very, very high correlation regarding these lows of geomagnetic activity corresponding to highs in the market. So, and this is not only the last 10 years, this is the full period. We have no more data since 1932. So, but when you take the full period of data you have, and you have such a high correlation here, you don't need to mathematically calculate your calculation, you see it there, then okay, this is just some statistics here on these dates. Of course, the absolute values, perhaps even this is tradable for a fund manager or something like this. When you see the performance of all these dates here, you can go over it alone when you have some times here. These are the same information here. The swings from 1 to A. This is the Dow Jones, at these times. This is the exact time information. This is the Dow Jones. And this is the move from one point to the another here. Yeah, you see the performance of the longs and short in this case. Okay. Okay, you can even zoom a little bit in to get a little. This was a high compressed chart. So when you have some points, you want a little bit more detail here. This is just a zoom in on these points. You have just put out this period here from 1952 to 63 to get a feeling that it's really interesting here. Here was the D with the date, the 5 was here, the E, this point here. So you see how nicely it tracked all the price movement. When you have such things, you don't need to trade intraday. Okay. So, and you can even look out these states regarding social mood extremes. So this makes it interesting when you look for confirmation. We all know the 1999-2000 was a peak date, and it was correlated with the market high. Screaming Dow goes up to 36,000. Stock prices are much too low. We had the internet bubble here during this time. So, but what you saw on the chart that we have a low here, the next one, the outstanding peak here in 2003 was a market low. But on the other hand, we had extremely pessimistic sentiment. We had a lot of social stress going on. We had a lot of fear about the SARS outbreak with about 1,000 deaths. So there was a lot of fear, a lot of depressive mood down here. It's not only how we invest. You can see this behavior. That's a lot of fear where there's only negative news out there. And these correlates with high geomagnetic disturbances out there, so that our mood gets bad and we have fear. We don't know what's going on. So all these stuff gets more and more into the news. 2007 market high here. Yeah, the news was full with positive news, so our mood was so positive. Every taxi driver was investing again in stocks. We are so happy, and it will get up and better and all these things. But we know that was a low in the geomagnetic activity. 2009, yeah, you can go over all these points, and it's interesting to read a little bit what have been the news during these times, what have been interested, what are people interested in, not only in the stock market, so what was the surrounding situation regarding mood, sentiment, and all this information here. So this is interesting. If you get more and more into mood and social mood extremes, you will find high correlations with this. So if we start to look at this data this way, there's another very important information, because if you look at the actual numbers where we are, this is the point. Can it get better from here? This is an extreme we did not have during the last 80, 70 years. So we feel so positive during the last years. It's not wondering. So, but if you see it from a relative perspective and you see what the data has done here, this is an important low, not only in the relative past and perhaps in the absolute past. I don't want to draw any conclusion out of this, but if you start to think about it, and if you see something in this picture, I think then a lot of dots come together perhaps where we are in all these cycles. Yeah, because from here it can only get better. And this is exactly what is happening. So all these revolutions in Northern Africa, so the people, they think they can do everything. It's time, they don't have fear from the government. They go ahead and the government fails, because we all feel so comfortable we can rule the world. We have to invest and it all gets better here. So this is just from the social perspective, just confirmation that we have a very, very extreme now that drives our mood. We are so positive here, but in the end, there's not much room to get better anymore, to say it this way. So this should correlate with major highs in the markets which we are observing right now, because there's no room to get even better. And if you then see what the solar cycle is doing and what's happening out there, you have also confirmation, because all the sunspots and the geomagnetic activity increased since last year. So you know what will happen when you have done this research. Okay. Okay, now if you want some link, of course, it's me, and you only, if you just apply this with the confirmation just to show you how I use it, you should not trade single indicator alone, but you know about this. If you apply some dominant cycles here, and if you look up what the major geomagnetic reversal dates show and what the dominant cycles showed us, that we had confirmation. First, we had confirmation from the major geomagnetic activity from this chart here highlighted, and if you have applied dominant cycles here, this would also show up the high in the year of 2007. This is the forecast here, and this forecast, you have confirmation from the next geomagnetic activity and this one here. So this was really stable, and just was to highlight you know what is going on here. We have such bullish sentiment out there in the market, which everyone thinks he has to invest, and this is exactly what you measure from cycles, from geomagnetic activity and all this stuff. So yeah, I think you can imagine that I'm really comfortable with what I'm thinking about the market. I think I don't have to say it more clearly, but I'm really relaxed and don't get any fear, or I'm not stressed if the market goes up a little bit. It's okay. I'm not able to have the exact day or week or so, but all this information showed us very, very important things. Okay, this is a long-term perspective. When you have the main picture and you know how it works all together, you can start to scale down, even from the indicators and from the calculation. This is long-term data. Now I wanted to transfer all this stuff into wave 59. So because now I was able to have found a way, okay, this way works from the whole picture. So now we have to use it into our tool and scale down, because it's too long, this period. I want to use it not only on the multi-year level, I want to use it on the daily level. So what we have to do, we have to update the AP index from the official KP-AP index data. We don't get this automatically, so you have to pull up this data out of the data source I showed you, the value, and put it manually in a spreadsheet, because there's no way to calculate it. Yeah? You have to pull it up, but this is once a day, this is 2 seconds a day. I think no big challenge here. Put up the data, and then there's an indicator as a Q script, and the decycling is done in a special DLL which will come with this indicator, which will do all the stuff behind for you. So you can load up the array data as this, but from now we are able to decode this information in the same way I did it manually on the overall chart here. So the algorithm that is applied now, it's a decycling engine and a little bit smoothing that we are able to see the trend. So there's some ultra smoothing in, and we have the decycling that we remove the short-term cycles, that we are able to see the trend of this geomagnetic forces here. So and when we apply this algorithm to this raw data, it looks like this way. The same data which I've used here. So now we can start to see something here, to apply some rules, and the same as was done on the longer term chart, we have to identify the linear trends in this information. So there's the last step is to decode this process data to find now the major geomagnetic reversal dates. So we have to connect major highs or lows to identify the trend changes. So the relative high lows of the human body will remember as high lows. So this is the relative information here. So but these are the linear lines here just drawn on this information here. And then when you plot is up on the chart, you see the correlation here to the market. It's not the exact high, but you see what happens when you use these extreme highs and the extreme lows to connect them here. And you see here where we are on the end of 2010. What is this? Low or high? You can draw the trend line, or? Yes, you will. So you know what this tells you here. Yeah, when it comes to the indicator, it's called the geo indicator. You have just two inputs to decide on. You can plot the ray data when you use mode 1. It will plot this black information, gives you new information, but plots the ray data. And the index type, there are two ways the index is normalized in a data set. It's also the CP index, but this does not matter which one you select, 0 or 1. It's the same. It's just a different normalizing range from the mathematical perspective. So it doesn't matter here. AP is the most known here, so you don't select one here. And then, in the moment, I have three different mode types here to apply the decycling rules. The number 2 is only the decycled version. Number 3, which I showed you, was the decycled and the ultra smooth version. You see the slightly difference between the red and the black line here, so it's more smooth. It's the same main trend, but it's a little bit more smooth here. And then there's a special information, a special new algorithm here with mode 4, but I would not recommend it because yes, there's some back optimizing, and you only should use 2 or 3 here. What I was using is mode 3 here. You use the decycled version with a little bit smoothing here. It's the easiest way to find these major trends which you are looking for on this data here. And in the end, the good of this is that we have a forecast into the future. So you will see these turns in advance a little bit. So this is what we need to see it. Okay, there are other techniques you can look about. So this is the same with all other work when you talk about cycles and all this. There will a lot of ideas pop up how to use this information. Once you have this visually decoded information, you can start to find ways for correlations and other things. So there are some ideas I'm just working on, but I just don't want to confuse you. I think this is what you have now. This is what I would suggest, that you now are able to use it on your own. You have what is interesting, a completely independent way to identify turning points, because even if it's plotted on the chart, it has nothing to do with price behavior. So what you see, this index there, is only the geomagnetic disturbances coming from the sun. What you also get on the CD, I think, if you're interested in the longer term period here, you have all data. If you want to do your own research, I give you all the data back to 1932. So also this was a long time of work to get all this data into one spreadsheet. You have it for every year and every day. You have the values here. And this you will not get for free from the internet. You have to do it manually. Yes, and you can plot, of course, all this basic information. This is how I all started with this stuff here. So if you're interested in all these long-term data, you can use also this spreadsheet here. What you need to know is you have to update the daily information on your own. So you will get this spreadsheet here, but you can even open it with an open source calculator here. You don't need Excel in the end. It's just you see it's comma separated file, so you can edit it with every editor here. You have to open the internet data source and put in the next value here. You see, I've just updated it till the end of March because you have all this forecast data. You can once a weekend you can put in the data for the next 2 weeks or something like this. The actual value changes, of course, because the forecast is not exactly what happens on this day, so you have to update the absolute values when they happen. So this is not much work. You have to do it once a week or on the weekend or something like this. And this is the basic information the indicator then loads up. So, but you can specify where you save this file. So you just have to tell the script where this file is located. Then it gets this file, you put on mode number 3, and then it will show up on the chart as an indicator. Okay, you get the DLL with the decycling stuff. So this is completely independent. This works what you have from here now. And I think you will have a lot of ideas or know how to decode all this geomagnetic activity now useful for trading. And I also think that space weather will get more and more important, not only for forecasting or stock market. Perhaps in 2 to 5 years, we will hear the space weather forecast on radio and TV, and perhaps it's more important than the normal weather forecast. But this is another story. Why this will important when you are in research of all the solar activity, we are in an interesting period with starting now or during the last year. So we had a very quiet period during 2008 and 2009. So we had not a lot of disturbances out there. And this is the projected next solar cycle. And what we see during the last year and the beginning of this year, that it's right. It's starting to take to get pace now. We see a lot more ejections from the sun. We see a lot more disturbances. The AP index gets more and more higher. So I think even this indicator will in the future be more and more interesting because the power that will come down to Earth will increase from the solar cycle alone, and there will come a lot of other effects that will affect our life here on Earth, but this is not what this talk is about. Okay, so I hope you have something new here that you will not find everywhere else. I think it's ready for trading now, and I think it's a start where we can find a lot of other ways how to use this information from now on. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions. Yeah? Sorry.
I wanted to mention that actually this is something I've been following myself, so I found this fairly interesting. One site that's not on this list is spaceweather.com. They will actually have daily, if there's a CME going on, they will.
Yeah.
And one of the things I mentioned that, and why I mentioned it is because recently, the last CME was timed about 36 hours later. We had the Japanese Quake and Tsunami. And they were very quick to disclaim, because they had a lot of stuff going on, I guess chatter on the internet. A lot of disclaimers were then placed saying that there is no, as far as they're concerned, no timing element and no market element related to the data. Also, it seemed that they also for a couple of days, there was no real change in the site. So my concern moving forward is that if we start seeing more, shall we say, confirmable data, they may stop, okay, giving us that information.
Yeah, so I'm often asking, why do we get this information for free? I have no answer for this, but I'm happy that we have it. Yeah, so don't share it too much. Perhaps they will stop.
So one of the issues that people should aware of, we've just moved out of a solar minimum, and now heading towards the solar maximum.
Right. And spaceweather.com is a great website to monitor all these effects. So even if you have an iPad, there's a nice application to get some daily information what's happening out there. Yeah?
I understand how it's put together here, but would you be willing to go through, I've got it pulled up right now and I got your stuff downloaded, just how to put one in for Monday? Just
just what's your question? Just it's
actually
how you open it in Wave or
yeah, if you can, if you're online.
Yeah. I will. Okay. Here. Okay, once you have imported the script and placed the DLL in the scripts DLL folder, it will show, this technical indicator will show up. And there are the information I've shown in the chart. You have to tell the script where the file is located with the raw AP data. You can save it anywhere on your hard drive. Just give it the path. And just decide if you want the AP or CP, but it doesn't matter. And the mode 3, this is the standard setting I'm using here. Just click OK. Now it's doing all this decycling in the background. Yeah, and here it is. So this is the same information here. Okay, this we have to work out in the forum then later on. So, but this is the normal way, so nothing special here. So we will work it out why there's that. But this is a normal way. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about a correlation between sunspots and solar storms, and how sometimes there are no sunspots at all on the sun, and I don't know, how does that affect the solar storms?
Yeah, the sunspots alone are not the key here, because the sunspots only tell us what's happening on the sun, and not every sunspot has to have the same influence on the geomagnetic field here on Earth. So once a sunspot is not directed in the direction of the Earth, it doesn't matter for what I've showed up here. So the absolute number of sunspot or the force of the sunspot is one information. But what we need is if it's directed to Earth, and with the solar wind it comes to Earth, and the KP index measures what's happening, the influence on Earth. So I think the solar activity alone is an interesting field, but does not give us the information we need, because we have to know what happens out of these solar storm here on Earth. So, and therefore I use the KP index, because
I guess I wanted to add that if you noticed, if there are more sunspots, that means the solar storms are more active.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh. So the solar cycle increases, there are more and more sunspots, and then so we will have more and more sunspots which are also directed into the way of Earth. So this will increase, yes, right.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Eric has written that the 9-5 count can be applied to natural phenomena.
Yeah.
Have you looked at it on
No.
this?
Yeah, but
and would
yeah.
that
Yeah.
provide perhaps useful confirmation?
Right. Would be interesting to apply this indicator on this data set. Yeah. But I've not done, but this is another idea where should be interesting, yeah. Just wait a moment. Here. John.
Can you show the slide again of the spreadsheet with the forecast data for the coming up the next couple of days? It was like 2 or 3 from the end.
You're talking about this one?
Yes. Looks like, now, if that forecast data for Monday at 18, isn't that, those look like, I mean, if you look back, those look to be relatively high.
Yeah, this is based that there's a sunspot out there, and the sun is rotating, and this sunspot will coming back in the way where these ejections will come back down to Earth. So the forecasters know, because of the rotation of the sun and the solar wind, that during these days the charged particles will come back to Earth based on a sunspot which is already out there. So this is the reason why they are able to say, okay, the geomagnetic influences, so this is a forecast value, will be higher.
So, but according to that, then it's going to be relatively the highest since back on the 12th.
Yeah.
So in the last 16 days.
Okay, you have understand what I was trying to tell you. Yes, exactly. But I don't know if it's so exact regarding the days. So there we have to a little bit monitor how exact it is on the day or not. So, but you're right. This is exactly the way. This could be a short-term low here. Yeah. Yeah, but this is exactly the way to look on this data. This is right. Yes.
Mars has a big aspect. I think the end of this month will go fast. As I recall, I believe there's a big Mars-Uranus return to a key point at the end of this month.
Yeah, now it comes another interesting theory that planetary aspects perhaps have not a direct impact here on Earth, and have an impact on the behavior, what is happening on the Sun. So perhaps this is another field to research, if to use to look for planetary aspects and see if this correlates to sunspots or high geomagnetic activity. So this is one of the next areas to go into, because if then one big mystery is to forecast sunspots. No one is able to do this. So perhaps planetary alignments have an impact on what's happening on the Sun. So I don't know about it. It's just one theory out there, which I find very interesting. So now we are able to look up these days, yeah, and see if there are interesting aspects out there. So, and if this is the case, then we have another clue and can go on. But yeah, great.
Lars?
Okay, yes?
Have you looked at where the barycenter of the solar system or the sun, how it is affected by Jupiter, and how that might have any relation whatsoever to any of the solar data coming out?
No, I've not done any research on planetary movements and solar activity. So this is perhaps one of the next steps to look for correlations, not on financial markets and aspects, and only on solar activity and aspects of that. But I've not done any research on this.
So Theodore Landscheidt's work you have not studied?
Sorry?
Theodore Landscheidt,
okay.
a German judge, who his research says if you look at periods between Jupiter, the barycenter, and the Sun conjunctions, and in between them, the fourth, fifth, and sixth harmonics, you get more Sun energy.
Yep. Yeah.
And his correlations were over a lot of different things, of which economic behavior is one of them.
Yeah, so this gets more and more interesting to do it.
Exactly.
So if you have some background information on what perhaps will be interesting, just perhaps not after this talk, so afterwards, I would be happy if you have ideas to go forward. Yeah. So, yeah, just here, give it.
Have you tried to check it against something like gold or something like this?
No.
But
you also, this is not related to one special market or so, because this is energy and the disturbances of the geomagnetic field. I think we have to use major indices where a lot of mood comes together, but perhaps gold market, silver market should also correlate. But I use the Dow Jones as the major instrument where we have a lot of history, and everybody all over the world is monitoring this, so this was the reason. Yeah. Okay, I hope you get something out of it. I'm happy to give you something new on your way. I would be happy to hear something on the forum or take a discussion about this. Thanks for today. I think we will meet today in the evening, so if you have any questions, we will see later. Thank you.